Hi guys, this is Abdulghafur with Teaching and Learning. Today in this lesson I'm going to share you the information about the assessment for learning versus assessment of learning. This lesson is consisting on two parts. One part will remain on focus assessment for learning and the second part assessment of learning. Guys, assessment is the foundational or fundamental process of the teaching and learning, which mostly we understand that assessment we use for the measurement of the students' performance or achievement of the students over the course. But the question here, assessment for learning, is it the same of assessment of learning? Both of these are helping or being used to measure or evaluate the students' performance at the end of each grade level, or they are different. Like these questions, I'm going to answer several questions in this lesson, and I'm sure you have the same question. If you have any question regarding that, you can write in the comment box. If you like, press the bell icon button. If you didn't subscribe to Teaching and Learning, don't forget to subscribe to Teaching and Learning. I'll suggest you watch this lesson till the end of the slide. It will be very useful. This lesson is helping in the pedagogy TLS. So let's see assessment for learning and assessment of learning. As I mentioned, assessment for learning will remain focused in this lesson. Now think about it. Imagine yourself how you're going to differentiate these two things. How you're going to differentiate these two things. Before going to the explanation, I'll be sharing you these two images. Look at the screen. Everybody drive on daily basis and we use this rear mirror. Right? Now think about why exactly you use this. How many times you use and how many times you have to use during drive. Similarly, we use these side mirrors. How many times you know? What exactly? So imagine your intention while you use these two mirrors. And think about it. Which one you use mostly? And when you use these mirrors, what exactly you want to see? Of course, these two mirrors has a different purpose and a different perceptions to see the view or to see or judge. And these judgment has a different reflection and impacts on the driver. I'll come back on these two questions till that you can think about it and you can share your suggestions as well as your perceptions while you are using these. Let's go to the first assessment for learning. In the classroom, in my previous video, I have shared that every teacher or every school needs a equipped classroom, and how equipped classroom gonna impact on the teaching and learning. But what I believe, without assessment for learning, a equipped classroom is useless. If you have all the need resources in order to carry on your lesson, if you have a good teaching strategies, if you have a lesson plan, if you have a good atmosphere, good environment. But if there's no assessment for learning, that means you cannot measure individuals' performance. As I mentioned, that the assessment for learning is the fundamental and the foundational process, and it's a success you can measure by applying or complying the right way or the right direction of the feedback or quality of the feedback. So assessment of learning is a judgment that every teacher need to use or an educator need to use step by step to check the student's performance. Now think, if you are a teacher, how you are using mostly assessment for learning. Is it only to check, to conduct the assessment at the end of the certain time period or certain point to scale or evaluate the performance of the students over the course, or you are complying a strategy in order to improve the students' performance throughout the course? I'll tell you how. You can read on the screen here. Teachers make professional judgments on learners' performance in every teaching and learning session undertaken, whether consciously or subconsciously. Using these professional judgments and translating them into feedback on the quality of individuals' work is the focus of assessment of learning. Now, if you are continuously applying this strategy, for example, we have a session from 40 to 50 minutes. Some schools complying of 55 minutes. Now in 55 minutes, how are you going to track the students' learning? What parallel approaches you are going to apply? If a teacher keep talking, keep reading, keep asking to copy the information, then think there's a lack of assessment for learning. As I've used the word, the parallel approach. Now the parallel approach, it doesn't mean that a teacher has to spend more time than a student. There should be equal opportunity for learner and educator or teacher. Learner should be clear what exactly he or she is going to be learned. How he or she is going to use these 55 minutes to achieve the goal. And that all should be embedded into the lesson plan. Again, I will share you a complete chart which I have titleized, which is my own chart. Now here in the another slide, assessment for learning, AFL, improve learners' progress. Do you agree that? I'm 100% agree. Feedback is the main characteristics of the assessment for learning, which helps to improve the student's progress. As I mentioned, watch this lesson till the end of. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share how it works, how as a teacher has to comply this process. Now, classroom practices. Classroom practice are the most important for the assessment for learning. What is happening in the classroom, which is really, really important. It depends on both. It depends how teachers are providing quality feedback. That quality feedback definitely influences students' learning. Now, a quality of that, it doesn't mean that you have to enforce, you have to pressurize the students that you have to do. quality of feedback is automatically a kind of the motivational or influence or encouragement of students to complete the task. Now, the way and the feedback, which is the most important thing. Now, as a teacher and the organizations, they are helping teachers by conducting PDs to achieve or to remove all the obstacles between the teaching and learning. So I think the PDs and these are very important to understand the assessment for learning and other needs of the classroom or classroom practices. Here, another aspect, how students are taking this feedback. They are taking positively or negatively. If I said that if it is encouragement, it is an influencing positively. If it's a motivational, definitely the students will take positive. If they're gonna take positive, definitely it will impact on the students' learning. It will impact on students' performance. It will improve the students' performance. So all these assessment for learning or the classroom practices, how teacher is carrying this the lesson, and what exactly we need to improve the classroom practices, as I mentioned, as an equipped classroom. So an equipped classroom without classroom practices is nothing. You have all resources, but you are applying a complete relevant strategies and relevant techniques and classroom practices that will be very confusing, and it will not impact on students' performance. Let's see how it's gonna work. I'll be sharing with you a chart. Now look at this chart. This chart I have named a learning journey chart. How these classroom practices are gonna impacting on students if a teacher is complying or applying this strategy, okay, through this way. How to drive progress to attainment. Now, progress and attainment. The progress and attainment. Progress has a certain checkpoints, or it's unlimited. It's up to the teachers at teaching technique or classroom practice that how he or she is going to measure the student's progress. But this progress definitely is going to impacting on the student's attainment. Imagine teaching approaches and curriculum approaches are the parallel. What you are going to teach, if it is not planned, then the teaching approach will not be successful. So these both should be parallel. All what exactly you gonna teach or at what level you are expecting your student, it should be planned, and your teaching approaches should be accordingly. Now this line shows a classroom or a session or time period. This line, you can say a 55 minutes or 55 minutes. Okay. These all green lines are the checkpoints during conduction or your lesson plan, your lesson, or within a 55 minutes while you are teaching. At every point you have to check. What are you going to check? That students are getting properly what they have learned, they know or not. So this checkpoint is helping to check for understanding. And what each point you have to provide the feedback. And that feedback should be quality feedback after a student must realize that what they have achieved. I have wrote some point what the teacher has to do and what the student has to do. Explain the clear learning goals. Number 2, how to achieve the goals or these goals. Help them to achieve. It's not only that you have to taught them and that's it, okay, you'd go home and do your homework, that's it. No. While you're tracking the learning, you have the responsibility not in the classroom, even in the home. Because this learning process will not finish after the classroom. It has a connection. The task which is related with the related home based or related with the out of the classroom, but there should be integration. If once we said how to track, how to achieve, it doesn't mean that you have to achieve within 5 minutes. Okay, some goals are broader. It needs the real life examples, it needs the practical examples, and you have to set that atmosphere or set a criteria that students can achieve at any time. When they have achieved, help them to recognize. The students should realize when they have achieved this and how they have to achieve once they are clear what exactly they are going to do. What teach to recognize the teachers and what areas need to be improved. So both learner and the teacher should be very clear that on as a teacher on what areas I have to work, what are the weaknesses of students, and how you can analyze by putting these checkpoints, by applying check for understandings. So, and you have to provide this feedback is not for only the success criteria. This feedback is mostly working on the weaknesses, that these areas you have to improve, and how to improve that teacher has to set. But both learner and the teacher should be very clear, and they both have to recognize, and it can be recognized through the feedback. Now what a student has to do, they must have clear learning aims. They should be clear what I'm going to learn and must know what are these. Why are these? When to achieve and how to achieve. These are the most important questions for the student. If a student who's sitting in the classroom but he or she doesn't know what exactly I'm going to do in the history class, in the English class, in the science class, how I'm going to do, why I'm going to do, when I'm going to do, then there's the question mark. Then as I have mentioned, that equipped classroom, it doesn't mean that you have fully with the resources and all these things. Equipped classroom is useless without teaching strategies, without classroom practices. So there should be a clear criteria and everything should be defined to the students, that during this session what the students gonna learn, or in this grade level what the students gonna learn. They will be learning these standards, these points, and how the teacher is going to be. So this assessment for learning is not only for the 55 minutes, but this is for throughout the grade level. As a teacher has to track the students performing by providing. Now think about it. If a journey started from day one and a teacher who keep measuring the progress of the students, now definitely the weakness and strength. Okay, if there's a high achiever, he will be definitely will be extraordinary and he will move to the next step. If there's a weak, definitely teacher by checking and applying check for understanding, he will be filling the gaps and to improve the student progress. Now at the end of the course or at the end of the student, what we have improved? Attainment. Because this checkpoint is helping to know or monitor the student's performance. And if you are monitoring the student's performance, definitely you are going to fill the gaps. So once you fill the gap, it will impact on the attainment, achievement of the student. So I believe that the check for understanding is driving or drive progress to attainment. How to drive progress to attainment, you can easily understand now. So checkpoints or check for or assessment for learning is driving progress, and driving progress is helping to attainment, or which is improving attainment as well as. Next step, you can see here, this is the skill we mostly use or provide the feedback. Very poor, poor, satisfactory, good, very good, and excellent. Now how are we going to improve these? This is assessment of the learning. At the end of the course, you have create a judgment that this student got very good, excellent, and all these things by representing or demonstrating the numbers. But if you are applying this strategy here, checkpoint, you definitely know that where your class is gonna stand in the future. So very poor, unfair, and satisfactory, we can judge here. Instead of at the end of the term, at the end of the course, we have to observe here to improve the state. So this is, that assessment of learning is going to help to measure the skill or evaluate the skill at the end of the course. But assessment for learning is helping to improve the gaps during the classroom practices, and which is impacting on the attainment, and attainment means at the end of the course. So we can easily improve the students' attainment without waiting for the end of the term or end of the grade. Okay. So let's see how to improve the gaps. There are several questions comes in our mind in order to improve the performance of the learning. But I believe there should be a good activities. Once I use the word classroom practices, well questions the students should enjoy and interact. There should be proper engagement. There should be relevant topics and themes. There should be critical thinking, and students can easily think and respond. There should be individual and responsible learning. Student has to take the responsibility of the learning. There should be a proper planning. There should be proper feedback. There should be tracking on the learning, and many things, okay, which is a part of the classroom practices. So by applying these things, we can monitor, we can improve the progress, and the progress is going to help to improve the student attainment over the course. Now let's back to the point. Now think, I'm using this mirror several again and again and again as a checkpoint, and create my own judgment about the traffic, what's behind me, what I have to do, how I have to drive, on which track I have to do, and etc. etc. If I stop using rear mirror, it will be hard to reach on a certain destination. But this assessment of learning, side mirror is going to helping that is it my right direction. It is giving me the reflection what I have achieved. Rear mirror is tracking my performance. Side mirror is leading me towards the destination. Friends, this is the difference between assessment of learning and assessment for learning. I'm sure that you have enjoyed this lesson. If you have any comment and feedback, write in the comment box. Your suggestions will be highly appreciated. We'll be meeting in the next lesson, part 2, assessment of learning. Till that, bye, stay blessed and stay safe. Thank you so much.